of rally cry now, and you get to put your union big people pants on. And I would like to welcome to the stage Amanda Newman, who is going to give us a bit of a rally up and a call to action heading into the next election. Please make Amanda welcome. She is the Director of Communications and Campaigning, and this is all about our campaign.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me today. That was a very interesting presentation from Ros Bates. I would encourage you to make sure that you do your own research and inform yourselves of what all politicians have to say about health and nursing and midwifery. You may recall during the recent state budget that the government announced a workforce strategy to 2032. And as part of that workforce strategy, it commits to a certain number of nurses and midwives, and that was formed the basis of some of our questions. The opposition in their budget reply talked about the health workforce, didn't identify any strategies that underpinned how they would get to the number of nurses and midwives needed. We've written to the opposition to request further detail. We wrote to them immediately after budget to request further detail on their strategies. We haven't received a response to date. So there is some outstanding information that we would like answered, and we will continue to make sure that we are seeking to secure as many commitments as we can in the lead up to the state election. So thanks again for having me. Politics isn't a dirty word. Union isn't a dirty word. Power and activism, also not dirty words. In fact, politics, power, union, activism, they're all key ingredients in a winning formula. But the most important ingredient is you. In October this year, there'll be a state election. The outcome of this election could have a profound impact on your professions, your working lives, your life outside of work, and the very foundations in which our union operates. It's really important. In the same way, the next federal election will be held on or before the 27th of September 2025. Once again, the outcome of that election could have a profound impact on your working lives. Elections present risks, but they also present opportunities for us. In the lead up to the 2015 state election, we secured a commitment to legislate minimum nurse to patient ratios in prescribed wards, units and areas across Queensland Health. At that point, no one thought the Labor government or the Labor Party would be elected into government, and they were. So I remember the ex-Attorney General coming to our conference, and she made the comment, "History is made by those who show up," and we always show up. That same year, we helped to vote out the LNP government led by Campbell Newman. Those of you who were working as a nurse or a midwife at the time, you will remember it really clearly. The LNP Newman government sacked over 1,800 nurses and midwives from the system and slashed public services like Eventide Aged Care Facility in Brisbane's Bayside, the Byalla's Free Sexual Health Clinic. They closed the Barrett Adolescence Centre. We saw a number of suicides that followed that. It was a shame. It was an awful time for nursing and midwifery, for public services. Nurses and midwives rallied in the streets. Who came along? Who joined us at those events? Fabulous. We work with community supporters to defend our staff and our public health services. He sacked us and we sacked him. That is being active and that is being political. In 2006, a little earlier, we launched our union-wide Your Rights at Work Worth Fighting For campaign. Who remembers that one? Great. That saw hundreds of thousands of people rally in the streets when lots and lots of people lost their rights at work. Nurses and midwives, building workers, electricians, other public sector workers, everyone was impacted by draconian laws, which saw workers risk fines and imprisonment for standing up for their rights. This is in Australia only in 2006. And that was for something as simple as holding a workplace meeting. Those IR laws, industrial relations laws, took away important rights and set us on the path of US-style inequality and disadvantage. We cannot go back to those times. So we fought and we won. In 2007, as the workers, we voted out that unfriendly LNP government. But we are political outside of the election cycle too. So this year we had aged care members head down to Canberra, to federal parliament, to lobby politicians about issues concerning aged care, including ENs being excluded from care minutes, as well as compliance and enforcement with care minutes, which providers continue to play up in aged care. Our aged care members really bravely shared their harrowing stories about what it's like to work in aged care. And they were powerful. They talked to ministers, they talked to members of parliament, and they listened. Soon after that, the Aged Care Minister, Annika Wells, announced that ENs would be included in care minutes. It wasn't a perfect announcement, but it was a start, and it demonstrated that the government listened. It demonstrated that the work that we do, that members do, is effective. And I know I heard a delegate yesterday say Batman is great, but we need Robin. And that will be a piece of work that continues for us. And the thing about us as a union movement is our fight. There is always a fight to be had. Our fight will never be over. We always strive for improved wages and conditions. In private hospitals, we've ensured transparency and accountability for government spending, a la Marta Springfield. And we're also working to improve nursing leadership, regulation and oversight of the private sector. In summary, politics and power matters in every single workplace. So, what I'd quickly like to do is show you some old school videos from our YouTube channel that speak to our union being political. The first one is of a real nurse, and her name is Chris Cox, who is here today. And we'll go straight to that, hopefully.
I'm not a politician. I'm a nurse. I want to save lives, not be in this ad. But Campbell Newman's LNP has sacked so many nurses and midwives, we just don't have the numbers anymore. And I'm tired. For every one patient added to our workload, 7% more patients die. This election, use your vote to help us help you. Remember, legislated nurse-to-patient ratios will save lives.
Authorised being on QNMU West End.
That is my favourite ad of all time. We don't do TV ads as much anymore, and that's because they are cost prohibitive, super expensive. We prefer to do social media, radio now, but we can still certainly do videos. The next one I will show straight away.
It doesn't seem right to leave elderly people with fewer nurses during a pandemic, or any time really, but it doesn't affect me, does it? Please, Prime Minister Morrison, bring in nurse-to-resident ratios. We need to do better by our elderly. One day, it will be all of us.
Authorised BMOL, Queensland Nurses and Midwives Union, Brisbane.
So the PM at the time, Scott Morrison, he didn't commit to ratios, but his successor, Anthony Albanese, he committed to something. So his government introduced minimum care minutes in aged care, including a certain number of care minutes with a registered nurse, as well as an RN on shift 24/7. So that was a significant announcement from that government, following years and years and years of lobbying from the QNMU and other branches of the ANMF. It has been a massive process to get to this point, but of course, even from what we heard yesterday and the day before from delegates, the fight continues. And we will have Olivia talk later today about the work that we're doing in aged care with a member. One more video.
Whether it's a hospital or an aged care facility, as nurse-to-patient ratios drop, the risk of death increases. Thanks to the Queensland Nurses and Midwives Union, Queensland public hospitals now have ratios, but private hospitals and aged care facilities still don't. It's our job to help you, but it's the hospital and aged care provider's job to make sure we can. So if you or a family member is in a private hospital or aged care, ask how many nurses are on duty, because ratios save lives.
Authorised BMOL, QNMU, Brisbane.
So more work to be done in private hospitals as well, but we're certainly up for the challenge. I'll go to the next slide. Hopefully I don't fudge this. Okay, so this is a slide. There was some research done about the work of delegates in the workplace. And I wanted to show you this because it links the importance of being political and also being active. And you can't be political without being active. And I'm not talking about appearing in radio or TV ads. I'm talking about being active in your workplaces and in your communities as well. So sure, we have 74,000 members, and that comes with a lot of influence. But our real power, our superhero power, is when members take action together to achieve change. We see that time and time again, year on year. That is where we win. So this table demonstrates the link between increasing activism in the workplace and increasing member influence. They go hand in hand. And the next slide shows the link between member influence and union joining. So where you have more influence, more members join. So the link is clear. As a union, we have power and influence when you're active. And guess who the union is? You. So I wanted to talk very briefly about the state election. In the lead up to the state election, our members have been very busy. You have been very busy. We've had many members turn out of meetings with MPs in the lead up to the state budget that I mentioned earlier. We've been focused on strategies and policies around recruit, retain and respect. And we secured some wins from the Labor government in the state budget. There was a health workforce strategy that was released that I mentioned earlier that commits to 18,700 new nurses and midwives by 2032, as well as strategies that underpin how to get to that important workforce number. We secured a commitment to 2,600 nurses and midwives in the next financial year. We secured a commitment to nurse-led walk-in clinics. So they are being announced, and there's more in the pipeline as I understand it to be announced. We secured a commitment to minimum midwife to postnatal patient ratios in public hospital postnatal wards. That is a significant commitment. And we secured commitments to increases in the number of security officers and ambassador roles. So they are just a few examples of what we secured commitments to in the state budget. Those things aren't handed to us on a silver platter. There is a fair bit of lobbying and members pushing the point home for us to secure those commitments. We know that insufficient staffing is a critical issue for you in all sectors. You've told us that time and time again. It's an issue not only for you in Queensland, it's an issue for your colleagues across Australia. And not only across Australia, but across the globe. There is a nursing and midwifery workforce crisis right across the globe. So we have secured commitments, but there is more work to be done. This will be especially important because in the public sector, in a case of interesting timing, our EB11 agreement expires in March 2025. Negotiations for a replacement agreement, EB12, they can't commence until 6 months out from the agreement expiry. That is 1 day before the government enters caretaker mode. So when the government enters caretaker mode, we cannot negotiate. So that means we need to secure some pre-election commitments to key items that we would like included in EB12. So a lot of the things that you have passed, there will be another step in negotiations once we know the outcome of the election, which is when we will land in proper industrial negotiations. But preceding that, we need to secure commitments from political parties and understand where they stand because this will form the basis of your EB12 agreement. So if you thought the election was important before, hopefully you realise it's even more important now. Also in 2025, in private hospitals, there are many enterprise bargains due to commence, and they're commencing to replace expiring enterprise agreements. In private hospitals, enterprise bargaining remains the primary vehicle to improve your wages and conditions. To secure the best bargaining outcomes, members must engage in and support your bargaining campaigns there. And obviously, I mentioned earlier, there's a lot happening in aged care too, and you'll hear a bit later today about that work. But in summary, we're reaching crunch time in many of the sectors we work in, and there's a lot of work to do. But we should always be guided by the fact that we have people and we have the power. We need to be prepared to exercise that power. So once again, we've got 74,000 members, and that's wonderful, but we need to back it in with action. I'll give you an important stat. 1 in 47 Queensland voters is a QNMU member. That is 1 in 47 Queensland voters. Together, we can change the outcome of elections. We can. Who agrees? Yes. Who's up for it? Who's the union? And who are the most important people in our union? And who's ready for action? Yes, great. So, I've got Chris Cox here, who you'll remember from the ad a little earlier. Chris is going to talk to you about our call to action for public sector members, and then we've got a call to action with Alan for private hospital members. Aged care members, we haven't forgotten you. There's some other things that we'll be talking to you about this afternoon. Chris.
I thank Amanda for warming up the crowd. My name's Chris Cox. I'm a clinical research nurse at Sunshine Coast University Hospital. I have been a delegate to conference for decades. I've been a counsellor for about 2 decades. I sit on committees for NMCF, LCF, anything else you can think of. And not a lot happens, as you know, but we keep on turning up, and many times we get the impression that with inaction that our executive would like us to stay away, but we keep on turning up. Thank you. So the call to action for the public sector members concentrates on 3 things. First one, pull out your phone. Surely we all have one. I've taken a photo of all of you while I was on the stage. Too good an opportunity to miss. Take a shot of the barcode. We want you to safely share your workload story on Public Hospital Watch. This is so that health, nursing and midwifery remains a top issue for the voters and for the political parties. We're creating critical tension. So when you have a workload issue, as well as completing a workload form so that our executive know what's happening in their own hospital, share it. Do it confidentially. Don't name names, no photographs or anything like that, but tell us the story. Let the state know that you're hurting. Cards are going to go around as well that'll have that Aztec code for you. Number 2, register for our EB12 statewide members meeting with Secretary Sarah and Assistant Secretary Grant on Tuesday the 6th of August at 11:30, and there's the QR code for that as well. Why not get together, members of your branch, and you can all dial in together. Bring a colleague. If you can't attend, there will be a report back. And then number 3, for public sector members, can I please have a show of hands for all members who are willing to be active in our EB12 state election campaign? Beautiful. And for all other members who will support us as well. Thank you. And by the way, I'm not so tired anymore because I don't work as often.
Thanks, Chris. And now I'd like to call Alan Ramsey from our private hospitals, and we're going to give a crack at a poll, so bear with us.
Good morning. How are you? I do realise some of my students are actually here. So my name is actually Alan Ramsey. I'm a cardiac nurse. I moved to Australia in 2009. I've been a member since then of the QNMU. I'm also an academic, a researcher as well. I've been doing that for about 12 years on the side. I work part-time at the Ramsey Private. And can I just assure you that when Ros Bates talks about being kind of neutral with unions and stuff like that, the private sector is kind of like that. I was really shocked about how hard it is to be active in the private sector. Luckily in Cairns we've kind of warmed them up a little bit. But if you want a little window on what it would be like if we did get a non-Labour government in, then the kind of what she didn't say probably spoke more to me than it did. All right, is that agreed? Look, I can only speak for what I worked at the Mater Hospital in Mackay with Hannah there, who was also one of my students. She was one of the first students I taught in the campus we opened there for JCU. I worked at the private. I spoke to some people from Flynn. They seem a lot more active than we are, to be honest. But when I moved to the Ramsey private, I detected that our members are scared. Very, very scared. Now, David Becker and myself have managed to turn that round. We've got quite a good relationship with some of the management, but they're scared. I've never worked. Coming from Scotland, the NHS is like, yeah, unions, unions, unions. It really is. Like, Scotland's never voted for a Tory government in the last, 100 years. It's just never, ever happens, right? Yeah, come on, Scotland! Freedom! But, so what I'm saying is, we're going to do a quiz or something. Is it up here? Is it up in the... We're going to do some kind of way of today. It's not like the one you just had where the people from the private... Can the people from the private hospital sector please stand up? Just stay standing for a second. Thank you very much for your service, and I appreciate how freaking difficult it is in the private sector to do what we do. You do it in spite of the system sometimes. You know, it's really, really tricky. And I know there's loads of us here, and there's fewer of us from the private sector, so you can imagine if you kind of invert that the other way, that's how difficult it is for us out in the hospitals. We're pretty much on our own. We did have some flying pickets that came from Cairns public hospital to one of the demonstrations we had outside the private. And at the same time, simultaneously, in a kind of neutral way, the hospital was giving out free pizzas to keep the nurses in the building and taking photographs, allegedly, of those who were involved. So you can imagine when Ros says she's kind of going to be neutral, I don't trust them. I don't trust them. Okay, I'm going to try. So I'm not trying to be too feeble about it here, but I'm kind of being realistic. It's going to be really tricky. Who sat down? Stand up, Hannah. Hannah. I'm not finished. Thanks very much. I might give you a deferred exam later for that. Okay, but what I'm saying is, it's really tricky. It's difficult. So and I know you said at the end that we want other people to support us. We do need your support in the private sector. Don't forget about us. And Sean Cram, is he here? He was really good. Yeah, he was quite active in helping me try to rabble-rouse a really scared cohort the last time we did some activity there. And I think it's getting a little bit better. I think it's getting better within our hospitals. I don't know what the Mater in Mackay or Flynn's like, but we've got our work cut out for us. So, is that enough rabble-rousing? Okay, you can sit down now, thank you. apparently there's 8 things coming up if you go. So if you guys could go on and do this just now and tell us what issues you'd like to get resolved. And second question, follow-up, is that how we're going to get that or achieve it, I think. And I've touched on a few things that worry me about it. Got a final point here about liaising with your organiser, apparently, to discuss strategies. And our number one strategy is going to be, when me and Jason go back, is trying to find out what our members really want. Not because we don't know, just to get them have a buy-in with what we're doing. Because the last time we kind of stood up a few times and I looked round and there was nobody behind me. I was on my own. A couple of people there. So it's really important that we try and message what we're looking for and make sure it's something that they all buy into. Is that enough from me? Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, private hospital members, for doing our quick poll. I could see from the results on the previous slide, who would have thought insufficient staffing is your number one issue? So thank you for confirming that. And there it is at 56%. And wages as well, also important, especially in the current cost of living situation we find ourselves in. And you can see the organiser will be busy in private hospitals, as they are busy in every sector, because the organiser plays an important role in supporting you as activists in your workplaces to devise strategies and tactics to win. Thank you for the polls. We might go to the other screen, please. I will just mention we're affiliated to the Queensland Council of Unions. They are also running a campaign. It's called Fighting for Queenslanders. They're focused on a number of issues that affect all Queenslanders in the lead up to the election. So you can find out more information by Googling it. And that's the landing page of the Queensland Council of Unions Fighting for Queenslanders website. So please feel free to have a look there at what they're doing and what we're doing together as a union movement. And you can see from all of the work that we do, it's about all of us working together. So regardless of the sector you're in, it's all about backing each other in as well. So we heard from Alan that there is a fair bit of fear in private hospitals. The best way to combat fear is by working together, to take those steps together and to have others stand shoulder to shoulder with you. So as a union, we're all about backing each other in. So, thank you. I do want to finish on a G-up, so I'm going to ask those questions again. And if you can respond with a lot of enthusiasm as we go out, back to our workplaces and to our communities to be active. What was my question, though? Who's ready to win? Who's up for it? Who's the union? Who are the most important people in our union? We are. And who's ready for action? We are. Yay, thank you. Thanks very much. Thanks for your time. Thanks, Chris and Alan.